The massive diplomatic station called the Sanctuary floated silently in space, orbiting a distant star that belonged to no one. Inside the station, 15 different alien species gathered in the grand chamber, waiting nervously for the humans to arrive. Some of the aliens had scales, others had fur, and a few looked like they were made of crystal or water. They all sat in their special seats designed for their different body shapes. The Solex leader, a tall bird-like creature with beautiful golden feathers, stood at the front of the chamber. Her name was Kira, and she had been preparing for this meeting for many months. She looked at the other council members and saw worry in their eyes. "They will be here soon," Kira said softly. Her voice sounded like music when she spoke. "We must remember to be welcoming. The humans are new to space travel. They are still learning." One of the Cleth delegates, an insect-like being with 6 legs and large compound eyes, clicked its mandibles nervously. "We have been watching their planet for 2 cycles now. They seem so different from us." A Narian representative who lived in a special tank of water made bubbling sounds that translated through the chamber's speakers. "Different is not bad. We are all different. That is why we have peace." Outside the station, a human ship approached. The Earth vessel Horizon moved through space with purpose and speed. Inside the bridge, Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, watching the diplomatic station grow larger on the main screen. He was a tall man with short brown hair and sharp blue eyes. He had been in the space military for 15 years before being chosen for this important mission. "How do I look?" Jake asked, adjusting his uniform. It was dark blue with gold stripes on the shoulders, showing his rank as captain. Linda Hayes, the diplomatic officer, smiled at him. She was a woman in her 30s with long black hair tied back in a neat style. She wore a formal gray suit instead of a military uniform. "You look fine, Captain. Just remember to smile and be friendly. These aliens have been waiting to meet us for a long time." "I'm always friendly," Jake said with a grin. He stood up and looked at his crew. Carlos Rivera, the security chief, stood near the door. Carlos was a strong man with dark hair and serious eyes. He had been a Marine before joining the space program, and he still moved like a soldier. Next to him was Dr. Nathan Burke, a thin man with glasses who loved science more than anything else. He kept checking his tablet, making sure all his presentation files were ready. Amy Foster, the young communications specialist with red hair and freckles, was adjusting the audio equipment one last time. "Everyone ready?" Jake asked. They all nodded. The ship moved closer to the docking port. Inside the sanctuary, alarms began to beep softly. A Vex delegate, whose body looked like living crystal, turned its geometric head toward the entrance. "They have arrived." Kira straightened her feathers and moved to the center of the chamber. "Open the viewing screens. Let us see their ship." Large screens appeared on the walls, showing the human vessel from different angles. The alien council members leaned forward, studying the ship carefully. The Horizon was not a small ship. It stretched over 300 meters long with a wide body and powerful engines. But what made the aliens uncomfortable was everything else about it. The ship had thick armor plating covering its hull. Weapons arrays were visible along the sides, even though the humans had tried to make them less obvious. Energy shields shimmered faintly around the vessel, showing advanced defensive technology. "That is a warship," one of the Cleth delegates whispered. They said it was their diplomatic vessel. Another council member replied, "It looks like it could fight our entire defense fleet." The Narian in the water tank bubbled nervously. Kira raised one wing for silence. "Perhaps humans simply build all their ships this way. We should not judge them before we meet them." The docking process took several minutes. When it was complete, the airlock doors opened with a hiss. The alien council waited, watching the entrance to the grand chamber. Jake Morrison stepped through the doorway first. He walked with confidence, his military training showing in every step. His eyes scanned the room quickly, noting all the exits and the positions of the different aliens. It was habit from his years of service, but to the watching aliens, it looked like a predator analyzing potential threats. Behind Jake came the rest of his team. Carlos walked with the same military bearing as the captain, his eyes alert and watchful. Linda, Nathan, and Amy followed, trying to look relaxed and friendly. The aliens stared at the humans in silence. They had seen pictures and videos before, but seeing humans in person was different. The humans were tall, much taller than most of the species in the council. They stood upright on two legs with long arms that ended in hands with 5 fingers. But what disturbed the aliens most was the humans' eyes. Human eyes faced forward like a hunter's eyes. Most of the peaceful species in the council had eyes on the sides of their heads, giving them a wide view to watch for danger. Forward-facing eyes meant a species that chased and caught other creatures. Predator eyes. Jake smiled broadly at the assembled aliens, showing his white teeth. Several council members flinched. In many of their cultures, showing teeth was a threat display, a warning before an attack. "Greetings," Jake said loudly, his voice strong and confident. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison of Earth. It's an honor to be here and meet all of you. Humanity is excited to join the galactic community." Kira recovered from her surprise and stepped forward. She bowed her head in the formal greeting of her people. "Welcome, Captain Morrison and delegation from Earth. I am Kira, speaker for the Galactic Council. We are pleased to finally meet you face to face." Jake walked forward and extended his hand. It took Kira a moment to remember that this was the human gesture of greeting. She carefully reached out with one wing and let Jake grasp it gently. His grip was firm but not painful. Still, Kira could feel the strength in those fingers. Humans were clearly very strong for their size. "Please sit with us," Kira said, gesturing to a section where chairs had been prepared for the human delegation. "We have much to discuss." The humans moved to their seats. As they walked across the chamber floor, the aliens noticed how efficiently they moved. Every step was purposeful, balanced, coordinated. Like soldiers or warriors, even the woman in the gray suit moved with athletic grace. Once everyone was seated, Kira began the formal proceedings. She spoke about the history of the Galactic Council, how it had been formed over 1,000 cycles ago to promote peace and cooperation among the stars. She explained the rules and traditions that kept the peace. Jake listened politely, nodding at appropriate moments. When Kira finished, she invited him to speak about humanity and Earth. Jake stood up, and the aliens noticed again how tall he was. He looked around the room, making eye contact with different council members. His presence filled the space. "Thank you for this warm welcome," Jake began. "Humans have dreamed of reaching the stars for thousands of years. Now that dream is real. We've achieved faster than light travel, and we're ready to take our place among you." He activated a holographic display that showed Earth spinning slowly in the air. "This is our homeworld. It's a beautiful planet, but it's also a challenging one. Humans evolved in tough conditions. We learned to adapt, to survive, to thrive in hostile environments." Several aliens shifted uncomfortably at the word hostile. Jake continued, not noticing their reaction. "We've had our struggles as a species, wars, conflicts, disasters, but we always came back stronger. We learned from our mistakes. About 70 years ago, we had 2 massive global wars that nearly destroyed us, but after that we united. We decided to work together instead of fighting. And look what we accomplished." The holographic display changed to show human cities, space stations, and colonies on other planets. "In just 3 years since we developed FTL travel, we've colonized 7 star systems," Jake said proudly. "We've built stations, mining operations, and research facilities. We've been aggressively expanding our reach, conquering the challenges of space travel." In the audience, a Cleth delegate made a quiet clicking sound of alarm. The words wars and colonized, aggressively expanding, and conquering all sounded dangerous together. Jake didn't notice the growing tension. He was excited to share humanity's achievements. "We've explored over 50 systems in the local sector. We've cataloged hundreds of planets, and we did it all ourselves without help from anyone. Humanity doesn't give up easily." Dr. Nathan Burke stood up next, eager to share his scientific presentation. He smiled enthusiastically, showing his teeth again. More aliens shifted in their seats. "I'm Dr. Nathan Burke, xenobiologist," he said. "I want to tell you about human evolution and biology. It's fascinating." He brought up images of Earth and its diverse life forms. "Earth is what we call a death world. The gravity is strong. The weather is extreme. The animals are dangerous, but humans adapted to all of it." Nathan showed a diagram of human anatomy. Humans are apex predators. We evolved through persistence hunting. Our ancestors would chase prey animals for hours, sometimes days, until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. We have incredible endurance. He pointed to different parts of the diagram. We can eat almost anything. After the short recess, the grand chamber filled again with alien council members. They took their seats slowly, many of them still whispering to each other about what they had just witnessed. The humans returned to the chamber looking relaxed and happy. They thought the meeting was going very well. Kira stood at the center of the room again. She had spent the recess talking with other council leaders, trying to calm their fears. Now she had to continue the formal proceedings, even though her wings trembled slightly with nervousness. "Captain Morrison," Kira said, her musical voice a bit strained, "the council has reviewed your initial presentation. We would like to learn more about human civilization and your intentions in space." Jake stood up confidently. "Of course. We're happy to answer any questions. Humanity is an open book." A Cleth delegate raised one of its 6 legs. "Captain Morrison, you mentioned that humans had wars. Can you explain what you mean by this?" Jake nodded, thinking transparency was the best approach. "Yes, wars. Conflicts between different groups of humans. Throughout our history, we've had thousands of them. Some were small, just between villages or cities. Others were huge, involving entire continents." He brought up a timeline on the holographic display. "The 2 biggest ones happened in the 20th century. We call them World War I and World War II. They involved almost every nation on Earth. Millions of humans died in these conflicts." The chamber fell silent. The only sound was the bubbling of water in the Narian tank. Jake continued, not realizing how his words were affecting the audience. World War II especially was devastating. It lasted 6 years and killed over 60 million people. We used incredibly destructive weapons, including nuclear bombs that could destroy entire cities in seconds. Several alien delegates made sounds of distress. A small furry creature from a species called the Pelton covered its ears with its paws. "But here's the important part," Jake said, his voice strong and proud. "After that war ended, humanity decided to change. We created international organizations to prevent future wars. We built alliances. We started working together. It only took us 2 major global conflicts to figure out that cooperation was better than fighting." He smiled, thinking this showed human growth and wisdom. "So you see, we're a peaceful species now. We learned our lesson. It only took the near destruction of our entire civilization to teach us." Linda stood up beside Jake. "The captain is right. Modern humanity is very different from our past. We've been at relative peace for almost 80 years now. That's nearly 3 human generations without a major global conflict." "Relative peace?" a Vex delegate asked, its crystalline body chiming with the question. "Well, there have been some smaller conflicts," Linda admitted. "Regional disputes, territorial disagreements, resource competition. But nothing like the world wars. Just normal conflicts that every species probably has." The aliens did not find this reassuring. Most species in the council hadn't had any conflicts, large or small, for hundreds of cycles. Kira tried to move the conversation forward. "And what are humanity's goals now that you have faster-than-light travel? What do you hope to achieve in the galaxy?" Jake's eyes lit up with excitement. "Our goals? We want to expand. There's so much space out there. So many worlds to explore and settle. We've already colonized 7 systems, like I mentioned, but that's just the beginning. We have plans to establish human presence in at least 20 more systems within the next 5 years." He showed a star map with human colonies marked in blue and planned expansions marked in red. The red marks spread across a large section of the galaxy. "We're particularly interested in planets similar to Earth," Jake continued. "We've identified 43 candidates for colonization in the near future. Some are already inhabited by simple life forms, but we have technology to adapt to those environments. Nothing will stop humanity's expansion into the cosmos." Carlos Rivera, who had been standing quietly by the wall, spoke up for the first time. "We've also established military outposts at strategic locations. You can't be too careful in unknown space. We need to protect our colonies and trade routes." "Military outposts?" A Narian delegate bubbled nervously. "Of course," Carlos said, as if it were obvious. "Every human colony has a defense force. Every trade ship carries weapons. Every station has security measures. It's just common sense." "Space is dangerous." Kira's feathers ruffled with worry. "Captain Morrison, the Council operates on principles of peaceful cooperation. We have no military forces. Our ships are unarmed. We rely on diplomacy and mutual respect to resolve any disagreements." Jake looked genuinely surprised. "No military? How do you defend yourselves if something goes wrong? What if you encounter hostile forces? What if pirates attack your trade ships? What if there's an emergency?" "We have not encountered such situations in over 800 cycles," Kira explained. The council species have evolved beyond violent conflict. We solve our problems through discussion and compromise. 800 cycles without any conflicts, Nathan Burke said, adjusting his glasses. That's fascinating from an anthropological standpoint, but also concerning. You've lost your survival instincts. You're vulnerable. The aliens didn't like the sound of that word. Vulnerable. Amy Foster, trying to lighten the mood, spoke up with enthusiasm. Maybe we can share some human culture with you. I brought recordings of human music. Would you like to hear some? Kira nodded, hoping this would ease the tension. Yes, that would be lovely. Music is universal. Amy set up her audio equipment and started playing her carefully selected playlist. She had chosen what she thought was an inspiring mix of classical and modern music. The first piece was Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries. The powerful, dramatic music filled the chamber. To Amy, it was uplifting and majestic. To the aliens, it sounded like a battle hymn. Music played before warriors charged into combat. Next, she played some rock music, songs about rebellion, fighting against oppression, and never giving up. The lyrics spoke of battles, struggles, and victories won through determination and force. The driving drums and electric guitars sounded aggressive to ears accustomed to gentle, harmonious melodies. Then came orchestral pieces from human movies, triumphant soundtracks from films about war, survival, and overcoming impossible odds through courage and sacrifice. The music swelled with emotion and power. This is beautiful, Amy said happily. These pieces inspire humans. They make us feel brave and determined. A small Pelton delegate whispered to its neighbor. They listened to war songs for entertainment. After the music ended, there was a long, uncomfortable silence. Finally, Kira spoke. Thank you for sharing your culture. It is very energetic. Nathan Burke decided to share more information about Earth. He thought the aliens would find it interesting to learn about human biology and the planet's ecosystem. Let me tell you more about Earth, Nathan said, bringing up images of various Earth environments. Our planet has extreme weather patterns. Hurricanes with winds over 300 kilometers per hour, tornadoes that can destroy entire towns, earthquakes that split the ground open, volcanoes that can darken the sky for years. He showed dramatic footage of these natural disasters. And despite all this, humans not only survived but thrived. We built cities that can withstand these disasters. We developed warning systems. We adapted to every environment on the planet. He switched to showing Earth's wildlife. And the animals. Earth has some of the most dangerous creatures in the known galaxy. Let me show you. Images appeared of sharks, crocodiles, lions, bears, and snakes. These are all predators that humans have dealt with throughout our evolution. This one, he pointed to a great white shark, can smell blood from kilometers away and has jaws strong enough to bite through bone. This one, he indicated a saltwater crocodile, has the strongest bite force of any animal on Earth. And this, he showed a picture of a grizzly bear, weighs over 300 kilograms and can run as fast as a human vehicle. The aliens stared at the images with growing horror. But here's the amazing part, Nathan continued enthusiastically. Humans survived alongside all these predators. In fact, we became the dominant predator. We hunted many of these animals. Some of them nearly went extinct because humans were such efficient hunters. He didn't notice the shocked expressions around the room. And we eat them. Well, not all of them. But humans consume meat from hundreds of different animal species. We can digest an incredible variety of foods. We're what's called generalist feeders, which means we can survive on almost anything. Linda Hayes realized that Nathan's presentation might be making things worse, but she wasn't sure how to stop him. He was just stating facts about humanity after all. Nathan showed a graph. Humans can also survive in extreme temperatures. We've established permanent settlements in regions where the temperature drops to 50 degrees below zero. We also live in deserts where it reaches 50 degrees above zero. That's a range of 100 degrees. Most species can only tolerate a range of 20 or 30 degrees. A Cleth delegate clicked its mandibles together rapidly, a sign of extreme stress in its species. How did your species survive such a hostile world? Innovation and determination, Nathan answered proudly. Humans are incredibly good at problem solving. When we face a challenge, we find The human delegation waited in a comfortable room near the grand chamber. The room had been specially prepared for them, with furniture sized for human bodies and air adjusted to Earth normal conditions. Jake and his team sat around a table drinking water and eating snacks they had brought from their ship. "I think they're really interested in us," Jake said, taking a bite of an energy bar. "Did you see how carefully they were listening?" Nathan nodded enthusiastically. They seemed particularly fascinated by Earth's ecosystem and human evolution. "I wish I had more time to explain our biology. The music went well too," Amy added. They looked very engaged. Only Linda seemed uncertain. Something about the aliens' body language had bothered her, but she couldn't quite identify what. She had studied alien cultures for years, but this was her first time meeting them in person. Maybe she was just being overly cautious. Carlos stood by the door, as always. Even in this peaceful setting, he maintained his alert posture. Old habits from his Marine days never left him. Meanwhile, in the Grand Chamber, the Council was having an emergency discussion. All pretense of formal procedures had been abandoned. The delegates spoke rapidly, their various forms of communication overlapping in a chaos of sounds and gestures. "They've had thousands of wars," a Pelton delegate squeaked. "Thousands!" And they describe it as if it's normal. "They killed 60 million of their own kind in a single conflict." A Narian bubbled frantically. 60 million. Some of our species don't even have populations that large. A Cleth representative clicked its mandibles together. "And now they want to expand across the galaxy. They've already colonized 7 systems in 3 years. How many will they have in 10 years, 20? Did you hear their security chief?" Another delegate added. "Military outposts at strategic locations. Armed trade ships. Defense forces at every colony. They're building an empire." Kira raised her wings, calling for order. "Please everyone remain calm. We must approach this rationally." "Rationally," a Vex delegate chimed. "Kira, these beings evolved by chasing other animals until they died of exhaustion. They play combat sports for recreation. Their music sounds like battle hymns. There is nothing rational about them. They have nuclear weapons," another voice added. "Weapons that can destroy entire cities, and they've actually used them. Against their own species." Kira couldn't deny that the humans seemed alarming. Everything about them suggested a species built for war. But she had also noticed something else. They came here peacefully. They want to join us. They're trying to share their culture and history openly. They seem friendly, despite their appearance. "Of course they seem friendly now," a council member argued. "They're outnumbered. We have 15 species in this council. But what happens when they're stronger? What happens when they have colonies throughout the galaxy and fleets of those warships? Their so-called diplomatic vessel could probably destroy this entire station," someone else pointed out. "Did you see the weapons on that ship? The shields? The armor? That's not a ship built for peace." Kira sighed deeply. She knew they were right to be concerned, but she also believed in the Council's founding principles. Every species deserved a chance. "What do you propose we do?" The chamber fell silent as the delegates considered their options. Finally, one of the senior Vex members spoke. "We need to see more. We need to understand if they are truly as dangerous as they seem. Perhaps we should ask them to demonstrate their technology. It's standard procedure for new species." "That could be risky," a Cleth delegate warned. "What if their demonstration reveals even more concerning capabilities?" "We need to know what we're dealing with," Kira decided. "If they're going to be part of the Council, we must understand their full capabilities. Let's reconvene the meeting and make the request." Back in the waiting room, a soft chime indicated that the Council was ready to continue. Jake stood up and straightened his uniform. "All right, team. Let's go show them what humanity can do." They returned to the Grand Chamber where the aliens had resumed their seats. Jake noticed that some of them seemed more nervous than before, but he assumed they were just excited about learning more. Kira stood at the center again. "Captain Morrison, thank you for your patience. The Council has discussed your presentations, and we would like to learn more about human technology. It is traditional for new species to demonstrate their capabilities. Would you be willing to do this?" "Absolutely," Jake said with enthusiasm. "We'd be happy to show you what human engineering can do. What would you like to see first? Perhaps you could explain your faster-than-light drive system," a Vex delegate suggested. "We are curious about how you achieved this technology so quickly. Most species take thousands of cycles to develop FTL capability." Nathan Burke stepped forward, excited to explain. "I'd be happy to. Human FTL technology is based on a principle we call space-time puncture. Instead of folding space or creating bubbles of normal spacetime like most FTL theories suggest, we literally punch through the fabric of spacetime itself. He brought up a holographic diagram showing the mechanics. We generate an enormous amount of energy in a focused point, creating a controlled rupture in spacetime. Then we push through that rupture into what we call subspace, where the laws of physics work differently. It allows us to travel faster than light. The alien scientists in the chamber looked at each other with concern. Their own FTL systems were gentle, carefully folding space in harmony with natural laws. The human approach sounded violent and forceful. Doesn't that damage spacetime? A Vex delegate asked. Well, yes, technically, Nathan admitted. But the damage repairs itself almost instantly. It's perfectly safe. We've done it thousands of times with no problems. How much energy does it require? Another delegate inquired. Oh, a tremendous amount, Nathan said proudly. We use controlled fusion reactions to generate the power. Each jump requires energy equivalent to a small star's output for several seconds. The aliens absorbed this information quietly. The humans could generate and control that much power, and they used it routinely. What about your ship's defensive systems? Anarian asked. Your vessel appears to have significant armor and shielding, Carlos Rivera spoke up. That's my area of expertise. The Horizon has multi-layered defenses. The outer hull is composed of advanced composite armor that can withstand impacts from high-velocity projectiles and energy weapons. Beneath that, we have electromagnetic shielding that deflects or absorbs incoming fire. He showed a technical diagram of the ship. We also have point defense systems that can track and eliminate thousands of incoming threats simultaneously. Missiles, torpedoes, debris, anything that comes too close gets intercepted and destroyed. Thousands of threats simultaneously, a Cleth delegate asked weakly. Yes, the computer systems can handle it easily, Carlos confirmed. Modern human warships can track up to 10,000 individual targets and prioritize threats in milliseconds. And weapons? Kira asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. Standard armament includes energy cannons, missile batteries, and railguns, Carlos explained matter-of-factly, though the Horizon is primarily a diplomatic vessel, so it's not as heavily armed as a proper military ship. We only have about 40% of the weapons a destroyer-class vessel would carry. Only 40%? The aliens tried not to show their alarm. Perhaps you could demonstrate your security protocols, Kira suggested, hoping to move past the discussion of weapons. Of course, Carlos said. We brought our standard security equipment. I can show you our combat suits and procedures. He left briefly and returned wearing what humans called a combat suit. It was a sleek piece of technology that covered his entire body in flexible armor. The suit enhanced his already impressive human strength and speed. This is standard issue for human security personnel, Carlos explained. It provides protection against environmental hazards and combat situations. The suit enhances strength by a factor of 3 and includes built-in weapon systems. He demonstrated the suit's capabilities. He jumped higher than should have been possible, moved with incredible speed, and lifted a weight that would have required 3 normal humans to move. The aliens watched in silence as he went through what he called a basic training exercise. Carlos set up an obstacle course using equipment from the Horizon. It included walls to climb, barriers to overcome, and targets to engage. This is a typical security drill, he explained. All human security personnel train on courses like this regularly. He started the exercise. The aliens watched as he moved through the course with lethal efficiency. He scaled walls in seconds, dove through obstacles, and hit every target with perfect accuracy. His movements were fluid, practiced, automatic. He had done this thousands of times before. When he finished, he wasn't even breathing hard. That's the basics, he said. In a real situation, we'd be carrying full equipment loads, which adds about 30 kilograms. This was just a demonstration run. A Pelton delegate made a small whimpering sound. Jake, thinking the demonstration was going well, added more information. Every human colony has trained security forces. Every ship in our fleet has armed personnel. It's standard procedure. We learned long ago that being prepared is the best way to avoid problems. The human delegation had been given quarters on the sanctuary station to rest before the next phase of meetings. The rooms were spacious and comfortable, designed to make different species feel welcome. Jake and his team gathered in the common area, reviewing their notes and discussing how well they thought the meetings were going. I think we made a strong impression, Jake said, looking over his datapad. They asked a lot of questions, which means they're interested in forming a relationship with humanity. Carlos nodded from where he stood near the window, looking out at the stars. The technology demonstrations went smoothly. No technical problems at all. Nathan was already preparing more presentations. I have so much more information to share. We barely touched on human history, culture, and scientific achievements. Wait until they hear about our space exploration programs, our terraforming projects, and our plans for the next century. Amy was organizing her cultural files. I wonder if they'd like to hear some human poetry or see our visual arts. I brought a great collection of Renaissance paintings and modern digital art. Only Linda seemed troubled. She sat quietly, replaying the meetings in her mind. Something kept bothering her like an itch she couldn't scratch. The aliens had been so quiet during the demonstrations. They had asked questions, but their body language had seemed off. "Captain," Linda said slowly, "can I ask you something?" "Of course," Jake replied. "When you talk about humanity's history, about the wars and conflicts, how do you think that sounds to species who haven't experienced war in hundreds of years?" Jake thought about it. "I guess it shows that we understand conflict and have learned from it. We're experienced in dealing with difficult situations. But what if they hear it differently?" Linda pressed. "What if they hear a species that solves problems through violence?" "That's not what we said at all," Nathan interjected. "We were clear that modern humanity is peaceful. We just have a complex history. A history that includes 2 global wars that killed tens of millions," Linda pointed out. "And we told them this as if it were a normal part of development." Carlos turned from the window. "Are you saying we should have hidden our history? Lied to them?" "No, not at all," Linda said quickly. "Honesty is important. I just wonder if we're considering how our words sound from their perspective. They're prey species mostly. We're predators. That alone creates a fundamental difference in how we see the world." Jake frowned, considering her words. "You might have a point. But what can we do about it now? We've already shared this information. Maybe we should be more careful about how we phrase things in the next session," Linda suggested. "Focus more on cooperation and peace, less on conflict and conquest." "We didn't talk about conquest," Nathan protested. "You said humanity colonized 7 systems in 3 years," Linda reminded him. "You said we're planning aggressive expansion. You said nothing stops us. To us, those are statements of achievement and determination. To them, it might sound like imperial ambition." The room fell silent as the team considered this. Jake stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the diplomatic station and the ships docked around it. He had spent his entire adult life in the military, working his way up through the ranks. He was used to speaking clearly and directly about capabilities and intentions. Maybe that approach wasn't working here. "All right," Jake said finally. "When we go back for the next session, we'll be more careful about our language. We'll emphasize cooperation and learning from other species." "Good thinking, Linda." She smiled, relieved that he was listening, but she still felt uneasy. Something about this whole situation didn't feel right. In a private council chamber away from the main grand hall, Kira met with the senior delegates from each species. This was an emergency session, called to discuss the human situation without the formality of the full council proceedings. "I call this meeting to order," Kira said, "though there was no need for formality here. We need to make a decision about humanity." The Vex elder, whose name was Crystalline Who Thinks Deeply, spoke first. Its voice chimed like bells. "I have analyzed all available data about humans. I have reviewed their history, their biology, their technology, and their stated intentions. My conclusion is that they represent a significant threat to council peace and stability." "Agreed," said the Cleth senior delegate, clicking its mandibles. "These beings evolved as apex predators on a death world. Their entire development has been shaped by conflict, competition, and survival against impossible odds. They cannot help but be aggressive. It is in their nature." A Narian elder bubbled from its water tank. "They have weapons that can destroy cities. They maintain military forces at all their colonies. Their diplomatic ship is armed better than our entire defense fleet. And they've been expanding through space at a rate that suggests they have no intention of slowing down. They have no concept of peace as we understand it," a Pelton representative added, its small voice trembling. "They think 3 years without a major war is a long time. 3 years. We haven't had a war in 800 cycles. But they came here peacefully," Kira argued. though her own conviction was wavering. They want to join the council. They're trying to communicate and share their culture. Of course, they're peaceful now, Crystalline, who thinks deeply, chimed. They're outnumbered and in unfamiliar space. But what happens when they have 50 colonies? 100? What happens when they have a fleet of warships? Will they still be peaceful then? They described surviving extinction-level events as character building, another delegate said. They hunt prey to exhaustion over days. They practice combat for recreation. They let their children engage in dangerous activities as part of normal development. Everything about them suggests a species that thrives on challenge and conflict. Kira felt a deep sadness settling over her. She had spent months preparing for this first contact, hoping to welcome a new species into the galactic community. She believed in the Council's principles of peace and cooperation, but she couldn't deny what she had seen and heard. What are our options? She asked quietly. We could quarantine their space, one delegate suggested. Declare the region around Earth off-limits and forbid any contact. That would only delay the problem, Crystalline, who thinks deeply, argued. They already have FTL technology and are expanding rapidly. They'll find other species eventually. We cannot isolate them forever. We could offer them territory and resources, Anarian suggested. Give them space to expand into, planets to colonize. Perhaps if their needs are met, they won't seek conflict. That's appeasement, a Cleth delegate objected. We'd be rewarding aggressive expansion. And what happens when they've filled the territory we give them? They'll just want more. We could try to contain them militarily, someone else said, though the voice lacked conviction. With what military? Another delegate asked. We have no warships. We have no weapons. We disbanded our defense forces 500 cycles ago. Even if we started building a fleet today, the humans would have years to prepare. And from what we've seen, human military technology is already superior to anything we have in our archives. The room fell silent as the delegates faced an uncomfortable truth. The council had been peaceful for so long that they had forgotten how to deal with potential threats. They had no military capability, no defense strategy, no experience with conflict. They were completely unprepared for a species like humanity. There might be another option, Kira said slowly. We could accept them into the council, bring them into our community, teach them our ways. Perhaps surrounded by peaceful species, humanity will learn to be peaceful too. That's incredibly risky, a Pelton delegate squeaked. What if they don't learn? What if instead of us changing them, they change us? What if they corrupt the council from within? Another voice added. What if their aggressive, competitive nature spreads to other species? Kira had no answer to these concerns. Every option seemed dangerous. But doing nothing was also not possible. The humans were here, they were expanding, and they wanted to be part of the galactic community. The council had to make a choice. Meanwhile, back in the human quarters, something unexpected happened. Nathan had been reading through a book he had brought from Earth, a collection of famous human sayings and proverbs. He thought it might be useful for the cultural presentations. Linda walked by and noticed the book. What are you reading? Just some classic human quotes, Nathan replied. I thought the aliens might find them insightful. Listen to this one. The best defense is a good offense. That's a great example of human strategic thinking. Linda's eyes widened. Nathan, don't you see how that sounds? What do you mean? It's just a saying. She grabbed the book and started reading through it. Her face grew pale as she scanned the pages. Nathan, these are all about war and conflict. Listen to these. Fortune favors the bold. We shall fight them on the beaches. I have not yet begun to fight. Victory or death. Those are famous quotes from important moments in human history. Nathan protested. They're battle cries, Linda said, her voice rising. They're things humans said during wars and conflicts. And you are going to share these with the council? Nathan looked at the book with new eyes. I didn't think about it that... The next morning, Jake Morrison stood before the mirror in his quarters, adjusting his uniform one more time. He had barely slept, spending most of the night thinking about what Linda had said. For the first time since arriving at the sanctuary, he felt uncertain. He had commanded ships, led crews through dangerous situations, and made split-second decisions that saved lives. But diplomacy was different. Words were different. And he was beginning to realize that he had been using the wrong words. His team gathered in the common area. They all looked tired but determined. Linda had prepared new presentations focusing on human cooperation and peaceful achievements. Amy had selected different music, gentle and hopeful instead of dramatic and powerful. Nathan had revised his scientific talks to emphasize human curiosity and desire to learn rather than survival and conquest. Even Carlos had agreed to talk about security in terms of protection and safety rather than military capability. "Ready?" Jake asked. They nodded. Together they walked through the corridors of the sanctuary, toward the grand chamber. Jake noticed that the station seemed quieter than before. The few aliens they passed in the hallways moved away quickly, avoiding eye contact. His unease grew. When they entered the grand chamber, Jake immediately sensed the changed atmosphere. The alien delegates sat in their places, but the room felt tense. Many of the aliens had positioned themselves further from where the humans would sit. Some had brought additional security personnel. Even though these were clearly not warriors like Carlos, they were simply there for comfort. Kira stood at the center of the chamber. Her golden feathers were slightly ruffled, a sign of stress in her species. When she spoke, her musical voice was strained. "Captain Morrison, delegation from Earth, please be seated. The Council has matters to discuss with you." Jake and his team took their seats. He could feel dozens of alien eyes watching them, and for the first time he understood that they were not watching with curiosity or interest. They were watching with fear. Before Kira could continue, Jake stood up. "Council Speaker Kira, with your permission, I would like to speak first." Kira looked surprised but nodded. "You may speak, Captain." Jake took a deep breath. This was the most important moment of his career. Perhaps the most important moment in human history. He had to get this right. "Members of the Galactic Council," he began, his voice clear but less commanding than before. "My team and I have spent the past night reviewing our presentations and discussions with you. We have realized that we may have given you the wrong impression of humanity." The chamber was completely silent. Every being present focused on Jake's words. "When we talked about our history, about wars and conflicts, we were trying to show you how humanity has grown and changed. But I understand now that what we thought showed growth, you might have heard as a threat. We spoke of our achievements and our strength, not realizing that strength can be frightening to those who have chosen peace over power." Jake looked around the room, meeting the eyes of different delegates. "Linda Hayes, our diplomatic officer, helped me understand something important last night. She said that truth can look very different depending on perspective. Everything we told you was true, but we didn't consider how our truth would sound to you." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "Yes, humans evolved as predators. Yes, we come from a dangerous world. Yes, we have a history filled with conflicts. And yes, we have powerful technology and military capabilities. These are facts, but they are not the whole story of who we are." Nathan stood up beside Jake. "If I may add something, Captain?" Jake nodded and Nathan addressed the council. "I'm a scientist. I love facts and data. When I told you about human evolution and biology, I focused on our physical capabilities and survival traits because I find them fascinating, but I failed to mention other important facts." He brought up a new holographic display. "Humans are also one of the most empathetic species we know of. We feel emotions deeply, including compassion for others. We cry when we're sad. We laugh when we're happy. We feel pain when we see others suffering, even if they're not our own species." The display showed images of humans caring for injured animals, adopting orphaned creatures, and protecting endangered species. "We fight to survive, yes, but we also fight to protect. We've driven some species to extinction through our hunting, which I mentioned before. What I didn't mention is that humans now work desperately to save endangered species, even ones that are dangerous to us. We establish nature preserves. We breed animals in captivity to save them. We pass laws to protect wildlife." Amy stood next. "And our culture isn't just about war and conflict. I showed you dramatic music and competitive sports, but humanity has created so much more than that. Let me show you now." She played new music, soft lullabies that human parents sang to their children, love songs about connection and romance, peaceful melodies inspired by nature and beauty. The council members visibly relaxed as they listened to these gentler sounds. Humans create art about love, hope, peace, and unity. Amy continued. She showed paintings of beautiful landscapes, sculptures celebrating love and family, poetry about kindness and compassion. Yes, we have art about war, but we have far more art about peace. Carlos stood up last. The council members tensed slightly when the intimidating security chief rose. But Carlos spoke in a softer tone than before. "I'm a Marine. I was trained to fight, to protect, to defend. When I showed you our combat capabilities yesterday, I was proud of what human technology can do, but I didn't explain why we have these capabilities. He showed a new presentation. Humans maintain strong defenses because we learned, through painful experience, that being unprepared leads to tragedy. We don't build weapons because we want to attack others. We build them because we've seen what happens when peaceful people have no way to defend themselves. Our history taught us that sometimes the strong must protect the weak. The display showed images of human rescue operations, peacekeeping missions, and humanitarian aid. When disasters happen, humans run toward danger to help others. When people are trapped, we risk our lives to save them. When communities suffer, we send aid. Our military forces spend more time on rescue and relief operations than on combat. We're warriors, yes, but we prefer to be guardians. Linda stood up and took over. Captain Morrison asked me to speak with you about something we discovered last night. We brought a book of famous human quotes and sayings, thinking it would help you understand our culture. But when I read through it, I realized that many of our most famous quotes are about war and conflict. She displayed some of the quotes on the screen. We say things like, "Fortune favors the bold," and "The best defense is a good offense." To humans, these are inspiring words about courage and determination. But I understand now that to you they sound like the mottos of conquerors. She changed the display. But humans also say these things. Love your neighbor as yourself. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. We all share the same sky. In diversity, there is beauty and strength. These are also part of human wisdom, and they're just as important to us. Jake stood again. What we're trying to say is that humanity is complicated. We're capable of great violence, but also great compassion. We've fought terrible wars, but we've also built lasting peace. We have weapons, but we'd rather never use them. We're strong, but we don't want to threaten anyone. He looked directly at Kira. We came here because we want to learn from you. Your civilization has maintained peace for hundreds of years. That's extraordinary. We want to understand how you achieve that. We want to be part of something greater than ourselves. Yes, we're different from you, but different doesn't have to mean dangerous. Jake's voice grew stronger with conviction. I won't lie to you and say humans are harmless. We're not. We're capable, strong, and yes, aggressive when needed. But we're also capable of choice. We chose to stop fighting each other and work together. We chose to reach for the stars in peace. We're choosing now to ask for your friendship rather than taking what we want by force, even though we have the power to do so. He sat down, and the chamber fell silent. The alien delegates looked at each other, communicating in their various ways. Finally, Kira spoke. Captain Morrison, delegation from Earth, thank you for your honesty. The Council needs time to deliberate. Please wait while we discuss what we have heard. The humans were escorted back to their waiting room. This time, the silence between them was different. They had said what needed to be said. Now they could only wait and hope. In the Grand Chamber, the Council debated for hours. The discussions were intense, with delegates arguing various positions. Some still believed humans were too dangerous to trust. Others thought that humanity's willingness to recognize their own frightening qualities showed wisdom and self-awareness. Still others argued that humanity's choice to seek peace when they could choose war showed their true character. Finally, after much discussion, Kira called for a vote. The decision had to be unanimous, according to Council tradition. Every species had to agree. One by one, the delegates voted. Some voted yes quickly. Others took longer, wrestling with their fears before finally agreeing. When the last vote was cast, Kira announced the result. The humans were called back to the Grand Chamber. As they entered, Jake tried to read the aliens' expressions, but their faces